Some rules are just asking to be broken. But what if that rule is an ancient Roman law that's been around for 1,000 years? And what if you're the one person who's supposed to enforce it? In the Roman Empire, the law was simple. A rich guy could never, ever marry an actress. It was social suicide for his reputation. The rich elites saw actresses as scandalous, immoral, and basically prostitutes. To marry one would be to completely destroy your name and your family's name. So what happens when the guy about to inherit the most powerful throne in the world falls in love with one? This is the insane story of how one man defied everyone, created a massive scandal, and literally rewrote the law. Not for money or power, but for a woman who was so smart she would change history forever. This is the story of Justinian and Theodora, and how the emperor who broke the law for his wife got an empress who saved his entire empire. To understand how wild this was, you need to see where Theodora came from. We're in the 6th century, and Constantinople is the center of the world. The heart of the city was the Hippodrome, this gigantic stadium for chariot races, basically the Super Bowl of its day. And that's where Theodora's story starts. Her dad was a bearkeeper for one of the racing teams. When he died, he left his family with literally nothing. For a smart young woman with no money, her options were terrible. Theodora and her sisters did what they had to do. They went on stage. But being an actress back then wasn't about art. It came with a huge stigma. Performers were seen as strippers or burlesque dancers, and a lot of them had to do sex work just to eat. One historian, Procopius, absolutely hated her and wrote a secret book just to trash her. You have to take it with a grain of salt, but he paints this crazy picture of her being wild and scandalous. But even through all the lies, you see a picture of a total survivor. A woman who used her intelligence, her body, and her insane mind to survive a world that was trying to crush her. She wasn't just a performer. She was learning how power worked from the very bottom. After years on stage, Theodora's life took a crazy turn. She went to North Africa with some rich guy who just ditched her there. Stranded and totally alone, she started the long trip home. It was during this journey that something inside her changed. She discovered a new type of Christianity, one that the main church hated, and she converted. This was a massive spiritual glow-up. When Theodora got back to Constantinople around 522, she was a completely different person. She quit the stage for good and started living a quiet life, spinning wool in a small house near the palace. She thought she was done with her past, but she was about to get the biggest upgrade of all time and meet the one man who saw past her reputation and saw the genius she really was. That man was Justinian, the nephew of the emperor and the guy who would inherit everything. On paper, he was her total opposite. He was a disciplined religious nerd who spent all day reading books about law and running an empire. He was a genius, but he had zero street smarts. Theodora had enough for both of them. When they met, Justinian was completely obsessed. It wasn't just her famous beauty, it was her intelligence, her humor, and her insane personality. In Theodora, he found someone who was just as smart as him, a partner who understood how the world actually worked in a way he never could from his palace. He fell completely in love. There was just one massive problem. It was literally illegal for them to get married. An old Roman law said a man of his rank could never marry an actress. It was a giant legal wall between them. To the rich snobs in Constantinople, this wasn't just a scandal, it was an attack on society itself. Justinian, the future lawmaker, was trapped by the law. But Justinian was not giving up. He was insanely in love and knew Theodora was his perfect political partner. Faced with a law he couldn't get around, he decided to do the only thing he could: destroy it. He went to his uncle, the Emperor Justin, and begged him. This was a huge deal. The Empress, Euphemia, hated Theodora and her background and did everything to stop the marriage. The whole palace was freaking out. But Justinian was the future of the empire, and his uncle knew it. After Empress Euphemia died in 524, the emperor finally caved. At Justinian's command, he passed a new law for one reason: Theodora. The law said that actresses who had quit their jobs could now be considered respectable. They were now free to marry anyone, even the highest nobles in the land. It was a legal revolution made just for her. With that, the barrier was gone. Justinian immediately made her a patrician, a super high honor. And in 525 CE, the heir to the Roman world married the former actress from the slums. 2 years later, in 527 CE, Emperor Justin died. Justinian took the throne, and in a giant ceremony at the Hagia Sophia, he and Theodora were crowned together. He insisted she be crowned not as his sidekick, but as Augusta, his CO ruler and equal. He called her his partner in my deliberations, and he wasn't kidding. Her name appeared on imperial laws right next to his. She met with foreign leaders and wrote letters to other rulers, stuff that was only for the emperor. From day one, Theodora proved she was a total boss. She understood the dangerous game of politics and used her power like a pro. It wasn't long before people in Constantinople started whispering that she, not the book-smart Justinian, was the one really running the Byzantine Empire. 5 years into their reign, they faced their biggest test ever. In January 532, the entire city exploded into violence during the Nika riots. What started as a protest at the chariot races turned into a full-blown revolution. The city was on fire, the government turned on them, and the mob crowned a new emperor. It was over. Justinian's top generals told him to run for his life. The escape ships were ready, packed with treasure. The empire was lost. Defeated and panicking, Justinian agreed. He was ready to quit. But then Theodora stood up. Ignoring the rule that women should be silent, she gave one of the most epic speeches in history. "My lords," she started, "this is too serious to follow tradition." She looked right at her husband and his terrified advisors. "Flight is not the answer. For one who has reigned, it is intolerable to be a fugitive." Her voice was like steel. "May I never be deprived of this purple robe. As for me, I agree with the saying that the royal purple is the noblest shroud." Her words completely changed the room. Shamed and inspired by her insane courage, Justinian hardened. He was staying. He ordered his loyal generals to attack. They stormed the hippodrome, crushed the rebellion, and saved the throne. Justinian's entire reign was saved by the iron will of the woman he changed the law to marry. With their power locked down, Justinian and Theodora started to rebuild. They turned Constantinople into one of the most magnificent cities in the world, and their masterpiece was the incredible Hagia Sophia. But Theodora's real legacy wasn't stone, it was law. As someone who got chewed up by the system, she was going to change it. Using her own life story, she pushed for revolutionary new laws to protect women's rights. Under her, Justinian passed strict laws against forced prostitution and made it illegal to trap young women in brothels. She even opened a convent called Metanoia, a safe house where former prostitutes could go to rebuild their lives. Thanks to her, rape became a crime punishable by death, with the attacker's property given to the victim. Women got the right to own and inherit property, and mothers got custody rights over their kids. She created some of the most progressive rights for women the world had ever seen, centuries ahead of her time. She is even honored as a saint in the Eastern Orthodox Church, right next to her husband. Theodora died in 548, probably from cancer. Justinian was so heartbroken he never remarried, and the greatest part of his reign slowed to a crawl after she was gone. Their partnership was the engine of a golden age. He might have been the architect of the law, but she was its conscience. Theodora's story is an insane testament to what one person can do. She rose from the gutter to the throne, from a woman with no rights to a woman who wrote them for an empire. Her enemies slandered her people loved her, and her husband respected her. She was an actress, a survivor, a politician, and a saint. But more than anything, she was the empress who saved an empire, the partner to the man who loved her so much, he changed the law of Rome just to make her his wife. If you thought this story of power, love, and rebellion was as insane as we did, make sure you subscribe and smash that notification bell for more stories about the incredible people who shaped our world.